Hello, I'm Nicole, and I'm really pleased today to be recording the first episode of That Engineering Chat in our humble Chatty Hatter studio that we're going to be using for these. You may well have seen some of the EDS takeover shows pieces that we did that were really well received, and we decided that we just wanted to film more because I love talking to people, and there's so many great people in industry that we want to talk to about business. We do create a lot of other podcast shows, but we haven't done anything like this for That Engineering Chat. So we will be recording these now in our little studio. And I was like, who am I going to talk to first? Who can I talk to first of all on my very first recorded episode? We have had other episodes, but recorded episode in the studio. And it was a tough choice, but it had to be someone that I've known for a couple of decades, though I don't look it, I'm sure, and that's Gary Livingstone. Gary Livingstone, for those of you who don't know, is MD of 3 fantastic companies and businesses that I've had the pleasure of working with over the years, and I will let you tell everyone a bit more about it and introduce him now. So hello, Gary.
Hello there, Nicole.
And it's quite strange to see you today because we've not actually seen each other for a couple of years.
Yeah, indeed, yeah.
How are you?
Well, keeping very well, thank you. And I can see you off.
Yes, thank you. Well, I don't know how to take that, but thank you. So for those that don't know, the businesses that 3 businesses. There's LG Motion, yep, Minitec UK, and Precision Acoustics. Can you give us a quick roundup of what those companies do?
Okay, very quick summary. LG Motion are an electromechanical automation company. We essentially just make things that go in and out, up and down, round and round. So be it from the film industry, right up to the space industry and everything in between.
Yeah.
Okay, so mainly development,
yep,
and process improvements. Minitec UK is a division of Minitec Germany, and it's a modular aluminium profile system. Essentially big boys Meccano,
yeah, and
it's used for the safety guards, workstations, automation systems, and much more recently now we're doing complete automated assembly lines for people. And then Precision Acoustics are acoustic and ultrasound measurement company based down in Dorchester, where they manufacture and develop different techniques, materials, and hydrophones and transducers for medical and non-destructive testing industries. That's a mouthful.
That's kind of why I got you to do it, to be fair. Yeah. I mean, these companies have been going for a long time.
They have now, yes, yeah.
Haven't they?
Yeah, 15 years or so, even more.
Yeah.
And PA is actually into its 30th year.
So that's amazing. Mm. So we were talking about what we were going to talk about on this little chat that we're going to have today. And I mean, we could talk about businesses and how resourceful you've been throughout. I mean, the pandemic has been huge, hasn't it?
It's created a few challenges, yes. Yeah.
You like a challenge, though.
Every challenge means there's another opportunity.
Exactly. Yeah, you've always had a great attitude to that, and certainly, you and I talking over the years, that's always been something that's been. But what's really come up for you in business? I mean, before we sort of we thought we'd talk about kind of restructuring companies for a post-pandemic world, which I just that sounds very apocalypse, dun dun dun, which I like. But yeah, let's talk a bit about that.
Okay, it was really just trying to set the scene. Is that the pandemic has now driven us to a certain position that we probably nobody expected to be in. Mm. So the first thing is that productivity, even prior to the pandemic, was essentially flatlining, despite improvements. People were tinkering around the edge. Mm. So now we've got to look at a different way there. There's now alterations in the balance between labour and automation. Mm. Very on news at the moment is the cost of robotics is falling relative to manual labour.
Is it?
As the minimum salaries increase and so on.
Okay.
So that gap between investment in automation and just investing more people is closing. There's always the global, the capitalist world we're in, is there's increasing expectation of global and individual consumption.
Yeah.
So the world needs more of whatever it needs. And there is a shrinking labour pool, particularly in the developed economies, because we're all getting older. Mm. There's very high levels of employment. And now there's some increased restrictions on freedom of movement, which again are going to create a few little problems with skill sets.
That's interesting.
So it sounds a little bit all doom and gloom, but it's just trying to actually say this is what we're faced with.
Yeah.
And now because of that, I believe the pandemic should hasten the move towards larger scale robotics and automation, just because of the factors above.
So that's really interesting about the robotics and so because the minimum wage, because the wages are going up, it's shrinking the gap. Is that right?
That's correct.
So whereas before people would be like, oh, it's really expensive to use automation, we need people.
Yeah, and technology costs have
come down.
So now there is that crossover where it should be considered more than it actually is.
Yeah.
So basically, I believe the pandemic has now created the much needed radical shift in mindset.
Yeah.
And to coin a phrase, necessity is the mother of invention.
Oh, I like that.
And that's where I just think people down. Our habits have changed. If the pandemic had only lasted for 4, 6, 8 weeks, we'd have gone back pretty quick. But we're 18 months, 2 years. So we're creatures of habit.
Yeah.
Our habits have been changed.
Absolutely. Yeah. So expand a bit on that, because when we were actually at the EDS show, I was talking to someone in particular about technology and robotics and the use of automation. And it was interesting that they were saying it's not like people aren't going to have jobs. It's just jobs are changing and skill sets are changing. That's right. And so what people are doing is different. It's not like, oh, well, robots are going to come along and take away your job. It's just the whole dynamic is changing.
That's right. I mean, and so that disruption to what we'd consider normal working practices, it's now forcing businesses to test out new ideas and innovate. Which otherwise they may have been reluctant to or just thought can't afford it. But again, the pandemic, one thing it has given a lot of people is time. Yeah. So it has time to reflect, what do you want to be doing, what should be doing. So that time and necessity should actually spur on increased innovation within the workplace.
And is that as literal as people couldn't come to work, so they had to do more? Or is it, do you know what I mean? I mean, is it, because like when you say we were stuck in it for a long time, so habits have changed, and across all businesses, not just B2B but B2C, every sort of industry, it seems like people have had to explore different ways of doing things.
Absolutely. And again, when you're manufacturing, there's only so much you can do.
Yeah.
You can't.
Yeah.
If you're milling and turning, you need to be there. There's no working from home there. But a lot of the technology was already available prior to the pandemic. It needed something drastic to actually force the mind shift. And now I hope we're in that same position. I like my technology, okay, and it just frustrates me when I go to companies seeing people doing the most boring, mundane jobs going that are primed for automation.
Yeah.
Yet the business are already caught up in their own mindset of, no, this is the way we do it. It's lower risk, just bringing people in and out. Yeah. But it's not actually making the workplace a better place to be, not always resulting in better product. And dare I say it, there may be a lot of self-interest by the business in not trying to progress innovation. Okay,
so give me some examples. Without naming names.
No, it's the, you could say like the energy industry.
Yeah.
They really got that much of a vested interest in trying to make us more efficient. So where does the money come from? Governments on taxation, they're currently taxing us to the hill on fuel duty. Well, if we all go electric and we're charging from our homes, where are they getting their revenue from? So again, there's always this, the country needs a certain amount of money.
Yeah.
So businesses need a certain amount of money.
Yeah.
But we may have to start thinking about where do we get that money from and how do we get it from? And it's not always about just getting bigger. You should, in my opinion, always strive to be better. Yeah. Not just keep getting bigger.
Well, yeah. I mean, bigger doesn't necessarily mean better, does it? And well, it's certainly not sustainable anyway.
That's right. Economically, it's not. Yeah. Something's going to give at some point.
It might be great for a bit, but it's not going to stay that way for long if you don't look a bit more into being efficient. So you, like you say, you've always been interested in technology, and you've always been very forward thinking and looking at lots of different areas. Do you think that people have been forced to sort of educate themselves a bit more now because of the pandemic?
Educate themselves. I think it's people just find out a bit more about what's going on. I mean, there's some the advent of AI has really come to the fore again since the pandemic. There's been more we can make use of that. There's more data collection. We can make decisions. More people can work from home because AI is doing a lot of the processing.
Yeah.
I know there are companies that are working with the NHS to handle just the sheer amount of calls they ended up getting through AI. All the extra scan results now. Well, if you use AI to do a lot of the diagnosis, you can actually get more throughput. You're not relying on people.
Yeah.
It needed the pandemic for people to think, we need to do this now. We haven't got people sitting around. We need it. We need technology to actually improve it.
That's interesting.
And to remove backlogs.
Yeah.
Now you could say after 2 years of AI, there may never be a backlog. So what do people do then?
What do they do then?
Well, let's enjoy that time. Let's hope they can go on country walks and paint and be philosophical. I don't know.
That'd be nice.
But it is the sort of people have been reluctant sometimes to take on some of the technology.
Yeah.
And now the situation we're in, people need to embrace it a bit more. And it's thinking about tomorrow rather than just worrying about your lot today. It's actually trying to think beyond. Oh, well, if I keep doing this, I'll be retired in 10 years, so nobody take my job away. You need to be thinking, no, change it now so you can actually have a better quality of life.
Yeah, and I think as well, because like you say, it's been, I mean, it was such a long time that we were locked down for, wasn't it? And stop, start. And even now, like we were saying just this morning when we caught up, there's been shows being cancelled and not total stop. But
no, I mean, again, as businesses have been forced, we were forced into furloughing workers, and I don't know many businesses that didn't take advantage of that. So it was appreciative at the time, but it was a bit regressive in some bits. Businesses did stall, did become a bit zombie, did get used to, do you know what, we'll just keep them off, we'll just take the money. Yeah. So there were a few zombie businesses created there.
Zombie businesses, is that a term? I like that.
It is a term, yeah. during the banking crisis.
I know, absolutely. Yeah, I love that.
And it frustrates me. Anyway, that's another one. But some of the emotional decision out of automation has now been taken out of the situation because of the furloughing and the pandemic. We're seeing engineering is, maybe not hit as hard as some, certainly hospitality and so on, but people who have found alternative employment or alternative ways of making money during the pandemic aren't wanting to come back. So you're actually getting a double whammy on the skill shortage. Again, double whammy on skill shortage, see the opportunity, automate.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's when there's an up, there's a down, and when there's a down, there's an up.
Absolutely.
Just make sure you're on the right bit.
It's interesting as well, like you say, about the skill shortage, because there has been such a lot, hasn't there, where people are just not coming back to jobs across the board.
They're not coming back, or they're choosing to say, actually, I was okay on 80% pay.
Yeah.
Can I just do 4 days a week now?
Yeah.
Again, habits. 18 months, 2 years has changed what people now see as being important. Don't get me wrong, there's still plenty of cars on the road and people still, but there is a percentage of people that think, do you know what, I just want to do 4 days weeks. A few other people I know actually decided to take retirement. Yes. Okay, so they're people that may have stayed in the workplace for another 2 or 3 years. Yeah. But given it, they've reviewed all their financial situation, reviewed their life, and said, you know what, give up now. Yeah. So the pandemic has been I think, sounds bad this, but it's been good for change.
It's definitely been good for change, without a doubt. I think for many people it's made them turn things upside down on their heads and think about what they're doing a bit more, because you've had no choice than to do that.
That's right, yeah. So new technologies are coming to the fore. You've got all the AI, particularly for processing. There's a lot more of the 3D printing and additive manufacturing, so you're not actually producing a lot more waste. And even into agriculture, the amount of robotics, because now, say, necessity. Yeah. There are not people in the field. And we've seen, I've got particular interest in lots of different robotic companies. And you're seeing drones that they're servicing wind farms. Yeah. You've got people inspecting nuclear reactors, all these jobs that are much safer, cleaner, but don't require as many people. But they're the dangerous bits that you don't really want to put people in that position.
No, absolutely. And do you think that is something? Was that something that was happening before the pandemic, and then it's escalated the speed of it progressing through the pandemic?
The development's been there for years.
Yeah, because surely if a job's dangerous, it's dangerous. You would hope that you would eventually replace it with a drone or something else or AI. But now, because the people have not been there, they've had to do it.
They had to do it, yeah, and it's great.
It's accelerated.
So a lot of nice new emerging businesses,
yeah,
investment companies like it because it's new and they can see the future. So money is getting pumped into it. The universities seem to be getting on board with it as well. So there's far more robotic technology, programming courses. And again, even from logistics, you've heard of lean process manufacturing. Yeah. This lean process now is just being applied to the economy. You've got to look at where is their value. If there's no value there, automate it.
Yeah.
And this is where, again, agriculture, the picking of produce, there's no value involved in the picker lifting up a crate and taking it to a warehouse. Get a robot to do it.
Well, and it just takes so long.
Yeah. the picking of fruit is still, humans are too good at it.
Of course.
So there's many years before robots will be successfully picking your strawberries.
Yeah.
But there's other fruit and veg, asparagus and all that. She's ideal for robot picking. And again, with the investment, it's allowing different business models because people can now potentially lease robot technology rather than have all the upfront cost.
Oh, wow.
So they can build it into their business model as an annual running cost.
Yeah.
No different from employing 100 pickers. You could have 3 robots supporting 40 pickers, for instance.
Yeah.
And you can roll it in and they get a different business model. So it's all there. It'll probably all take another 3 to 10 years to be commonplace, but it's all there already. And people have just got to, wouldn't be forced, actively encouraged to take the steps sooner, and hopefully that's through government grants and incentives.
Yeah.
Because the problem of, certainly in agriculture, not having enough people about is not going away. That is going to be the case for a long time. So that's definitely an area that you can see growing considerably in the next couple of years.
So, and how have you seen within your own businesses, these sort of changes? I mean, obviously you like to think that you're at the forefront of it and you're keeping an eye on things, but how have you seen that change and develop within your own businesses?
Traditionally, manufacturing automation, you're heavily reliant or normally heavily involved in some form of automotive or aerospace engineering.
Yes.
Okay. They suffered a bit of a setback in the last couple of years.
Just a tad.
So again, had to adapt there.
Yeah.
So we moved into restoration, conservation work.
Yeah.
So that was an area that previously been involved in many, many years ago, which came back, and that's been able to keep us busy because that industry wasn't particularly hit. Did suffer with universities effectively closing their doors because the amount of work we did with universities and postdoc and research work. So we saw projects dry up there. But by the same token, people that were involved in some of the medical developments, we were involved there. So that picked up as others dipped away. So business has generally been pretty good. On the automation side, a lot more into renewables. So the renewable vehicle manufacturers in particular, as the traditional automotive suffered big setbacks.
Yeah.
Again, emerging businesses. So as you know, I'm pretty nosy. I do like to see what's going on. So normally involved with the universities for so long.
Yeah.
You get a feel for what technologies are likely to be coming on. 10 years, could be 10 years history. And you sort of think, oh, right, this is starting to make a face now. So we're fairly agile. So we just move towards the emerging business, which is great. On the PA side of the world, 70% of that is export. So it was very cyclical, tying in with all the global shutdowns. So China shut down first, so we definitely noticed that. So 2020 was not to plan. It was still a good year.
Yeah, because you just like...
Yeah, we doubled the size of the premise.
Yeah. Hadn't you, literally?
Yeah. Timing, yeah. But as ever, it's going to come back.
Of course.
And so this year is likely to be a record year.
Yeah.
As China came back online sooner, we did a lot more in the water industry as well. So again, it's environmental sustainability. These are industries that you need to be involved in. Unfortunately, we've got a great set of people in all the businesses that can take advantage of the opportunities.
Yeah. So what else do you see, like in the future? What new emerging things do you see with your?
Well, if I said that, I might put myself out of business.
Okay,
No.
don't put yourself out of business. That's not the point of any conversation.
The emerging is really got to stay with the continual development.
Yeah.
So, for instance, the diamond light source on Rutherford, that's now been running for the best part of 20 years, I believe it is, maybe a bit longer than that. That is sort of like some of the peak of UK science, where they're now going to rejuvenate all that again.
Goodness me.
So if something as big and as expensive of that after 20 years says, no, we've got to go all around the investment round again. So there's many opportunities for many businesses with diamond light source. UK continues to be top level science. How that continues, I don't want to mention the B word, but we shall see how the skill sets how the skill sets sort of come through. And it's same as universities as well. Are we getting the quality of people to keep the developments going?
Yeah, are we getting enough people coming into engineering and manufacturing? Are the students coming in? I mean, are we ever getting enough?
I think the beauty would be seeing more actual apprentices.
Yeah.
I'd much prefer seeing people apply knowledge than just gain knowledge.
Yes.
And I think sometimes I do see weaknesses in our lack of application of knowledge through our schooling system. But that comes with time. But people have to be patient with that. But you need the energy. You need the ideas. So we're very keen on taking apprentices. We take them generally from 17, 18 now. HNC courses, degree courses. We've been sponsoring PhDs as well at the moment. So I'm passionate about people developing, be the best person they possibly can be.
Definitely.
And again, that put us in good stead because we do have some good long-serving employees throughout the businesses as well, because we do value them.
Yeah.
So that works well for all parties.
Absolutely. Well, that's just, long-standing, good, puts you in good stead, doesn't it, really?
Engineering, generally, I always like to think is long-term.
Yeah, definitely.
There's no quick wins in engineering. You do it right and you just keep, I wouldn't say plodding, but keep making sure you keep doing it right, using the right people, the right practices.
Yeah.
And 15 years later, you can be saying, yeah, well done, you're an overnight success.
Yeah, but isn't that the case with most things now? It's like, you can't, there's no quick wins. It's like, have a 10-year plan.
You have to work.
Have a 10-year plan. But yeah, exactly. There's no shortcut.
There's no shortcuts.
You've got to do the work.
And it's as true as many things. It's what people don't see is the difference.
Definitely.
So it's, but you do need a good work-life balance, of course. But yeah.
Has your work-life balance got better over the years, would you say, Mr. Livingstone? I remember when I first met you a couple of decades ago, you would never even took a holiday.
No, I'd still, again, a bit corny again, but I don't know who said it. I know it's a quote. If you find something you love doing, you'll never have to work a day in your life. Yeah. And that's generally how I feel most of the time.
That's great.
I've been lying to say there's not the occasional bad day. But generally, love what I do. Yeah. Fit it in with all manner of things. Yeah. But yeah, I'm very lucky.
Yeah, and but you've been in business for a long time. Well, let's not give away any age here.
Yeah, no, it is.
You set up, but been doing it for a long time.
Well, I think you remember we actually trebled the size of our premises during the banking crisis.
You love a challenge.
Yeah. So when everybody said, don't do it, I remember starting, what on earth are you doing going into manufacturing? You're an idiot. So, yeah, thanks for your support on that. So some of the local
I think
banks,
anyone that says you're an idiot for doing something, I now don't see that as a red flag. I see that as a green flag.
It's a green flag, yeah. So we've done that. We moved, let's say, trebled the size of the factory during the 2008 banking crisis. We've continued the investment through these pandemics. I think, say, so 2-3 years ago, we added maybe just over 60% additional research lab space at PA. So we'll just continue the investment in LG and Minitec with new machines, new people, new processes. We used the downtime of the pandemic to put in a new ERP system across the 3 businesses. There's always something to do, and you've got to look for tomorrow. Don't keep worrying about today.
It's quite a different approach, isn't it? People are always like, live for the moment, not for yesterday or tomorrow. But you're like, no, think about tomorrow. Don't think about today.
If you thought about tomorrow enough times, you can always enjoy today.
That's I like that. That's a very good point. So what else can businesses do to come out of this pandemic? What else do they need to be looking at?
I think they have to just get a bit of confidence back.
Yeah.
There is a little bit of people losing their mojo. Confidence has been dented. Fully appreciate that. There's been anxiety everywhere. I'm fairly fortunate that within the local area, we've got some really good business people, support groups that you know from be it going out cycling or just going out for a laugh. We've talked to each other.
Yes.
Unfortunately, a few of us have had tough moments, but you have to get back into the. I know it sounds a bit cliche now. It's good to talk type thing, but during that last 2 years, quite a few of us all made efforts to keep in touch with people, which kept everyone moving and kept it buoyant. So I still think, I don't know if you've watched any of the Paul Whitehouse and Bob Mortimer fishing shows.
I haven't, actually. It's funny that I haven't.
No, they're brilliant.
Are they?
They should be on the NHS.
Should they?
Absolutely.
What is it about that then?
It's 2 blokes talking rubbish.
Yeah.
And fishing.
Yeah.
Just easy life. It's great.
But don't you think that during the pandemic, we did, like you say, we all kept in touch. There was kind of a flurry at the beginning. We all kept in touch because we couldn't talk to each other. So everyone was really communicating. And then there was a period when everyone, I mean, myself included, almost went dark and just sort of withdrew. And then everyone sort of talked again. And I almost feel like people have forgotten how to talk to each other a bit again now.
Again, habits have changed.
Exactly.
People realise,
actually,
I quite like my own time.
Yeah.
I think people maybe are a bit more reflective. Again, I don't think it's a bad thing. Business-wise, has definitely suffered. I know from a business manager point of view, it wasn't my style to be doing things remotely.
No.
And it was very difficult. And you feel that, again, it's not that the businesses are in a great place. I'm more frustrated that they're not in as good a place as I wanted them to be. But given where they are, everyone would take it. But I just feel I've lost a year.
Yes, I think there is a sense of that at the moment. I think everyone's, that I know and speak to, is appreciating a sense of loss of time that you can't get back. Yeah. But, I mean, that's the case.
It's the case, yeah. I mean, exactly. But work, everyone's got on. We've had... so the key thing for me is that despite it all and keeping the general work morale up, is we've still spent the money. We're still investing. Yeah. The training, saying these businesses are only going forwards. We're not going backwards. And when you do get the opportunity to speak to some customers, there's almost relief that you're not doom and gloom. Yeah. So that there's, as with any pandemic, there's always businesses that are doing really well. We had a flurry of work from Heathrow Airport. Loads of work for Heathrow, which was particularly satisfying, although it was very, very tough. But we managed to get tier 1 supplier status within a 2-week period. Yeah,
I mean, that was phenomenal.
But again, necessity.
Yeah,
Heathrow needed it, the airports need to stay
Absolutely.
open. And we were fortunate enough that I'd preempted things with some stock holdings, which allowed us to deliver on time. We were supplying the medical industry with a respiratory tube, the automation of putting the tubes and the connectors together. So there was definitely some work that if it wasn't for the pandemic, we would never have got, wouldn't have been there. But saying that, there was some other good business that still came along just because we were able to deliver. What,
I mean, with that, with like logistics and supply chain, how has that been? Because that's something that I've certainly was hearing across the board that it's like so slow.
It is very tough. I mean, there are
How's
products
that?
now. It's just people can't even get hold of the metal to make the part.
Goodness me.
Let alone getting the part. So from 2 years ago, there were some things on bearings that we'd normally get in 2 weeks. You're lucky if you get a year delivery now.
I mean, what does that mean? A year delivery when it was 2 weeks. That's like me waiting a year for a pair of shoes that I'm getting told it's not going to happen. I'm not going to be happy about that.
No, you'd have changed your mind by then as well.
I would have definitely bought a different pair of shoes by then, yeah. But do you know what I mean? Literally, what does that mean?
It's generally the world it's like toilet rolls. They've panic bought. So either they've used up whatever capacity there was and just accentuate the problem.
Yeah.
But it happened exactly the same in the banking crisis.
Yeah.
And then as it eases back, all the delivery chain, it eases slightly.
And when do you sort of, crystal ball and all that, but how do you anticipate the length of time on that easing? Are you, when are we going to start to see that ease? How much is that going to, because that's going to impact businesses massively. If you can't get something for a year.
As recently as today, there's parts of Europe being put on lockdown again. So this time next year, at best. So 2022 is going to be use what you've got.
Yeah.
Which again, unfortunately, is going to slow things down. We've got inflation running away. So again, I still believe projects will go ahead, but where people may have budgeted for 3 projects, now they can actually only afford 2. So again, there's going to be an issue. And even if they are got 2 projects, who's to say you can get hold of the parts to complete the 2 projects?
Exactly.
So we always buy a lot of our core parts generally over a year in advance. So for all of this year, we've been pretty good.
Yeah.
But you're 2022 now. And of course, during 2021, you can't buy a year in advance. So there's bits, we'll have to wait and see. There's some of the standard product you've got cover for, but we've ended up being cheap and just over-ordering to get the time in, and there's hope stuff starts coming in earlier.
I mean...
And then you're just tying up money.
Well, yeah. Aren't you? Yeah. When do you see things getting back to how they were before? When's manufacturing going to start to... Or is it just, as we're saying here, it's going to change, it's going to be different?
It has to change.
Of course.
People need to change their ways of working.
Yeah.
You will find alternative ways of doing things just because the old way doesn't exist anymore, or it takes too long. So I think there'll be an element of larger corporations thinking about their supply chain. Do they actually have more smaller factories rather than one mega factory? But again, that's not a 5-minute fix. That's a big thinking process. Politically, with all taxations and cross borders, travel restrictions, who knows? I mean, shipping costs. We were getting, I think, probably 6 months ago, maybe $6,000 a container. Now you're looking at probably nearer $15,000. It's exactly the same bits that come out of the container.
I don't know how you managed to smile. It's like whenever I talk to you, it's just smiling. It's just smiling. It's just business.
It's a game.
Yeah.
It's a big game. You know the rules.
Yeah.
You just got to play the game better.
Is that your business advice out there for people to keeping their...
I always think business is simple.
Yeah.
People make it complicated. Okay.
Yeah.
So it is just... I don't mean to be flippant when I say it's a big game.
You're not being flippant.
But you understand...
Yes.
Core economics,
absolutely,
supply and demand.
Yeah.
And if things aren't happening, you have to make a change.
Absolutely.
And that's it. You just keep moving forwards.
Would you say with emerging markets that have come out of this pandemic, obviously you talked about automation, what and agriculture, what are the other ones, like AI, is that a big one? What would you say are going to be the big, because surely, the motor industry, that's just going to go through huge changes now. I get totally confused about that. We could probably do a whole podcast just you talking to me about that.
I'm not in the automotive industry. I mean, electric vehicles are great.
Electric vehicles, yeah, absolutely. That's huge.
But I don't think it's the silver bullet that's going to solve all all the rest of our ills. It's a way forward, and politically, it's the favourite at the moment.
It's the way their edginess, isn't it? And certainly with again the travel industry. I mean that's going to be. When's that going to get back to?
It's going to be tough. Everything's going to be more expensive. But again, in a heart of hearts, should you really be able to fly to Benidorm for 20 quid return?
I mean, I haven't been to Benidorm for 20 quid, but I know what you're saying. I know what you're saying. Yeah.
People.
So it's going to change the way we look at it.
Some people may get used to having half a dozen holidays a year. Well, really?
Yeah.
So I think again, it's just a change, and we've it sounds too big this, but as a society, you've got to work out what do you want, and we're all pretty selfish and don't want to give up anything.
So true.
And that's where the problem lies.
But this happens every time we have any sort of pandemic, and I know I remember there's been times when it's like, oh, we can't travel the way we used to. It's, we kind of spit our dummies out.
Yeah.
But then we adjust and then we, accept, and then we move forwards, and then we move on. And then you have a different way of doing things. Yeah. And quite often it feels better in the long run.
Well, it's
not initially it's that initial sort of, oh, I've got to do something differently to how I did it now.
But I mean, 10 years ago, we were doing acceptance tests over web links before customers came in.
Goodness me.
Okay. Now, that wasn't difficult. I mean, it's nowhere near as clear and clean as it is now. But the technology existed. Work we've been doing for US companies and so on, it's not uncommon now that you're online with half a dozen people.
Absolutely.
Walking around the system with a webcam, and they say, oh, can you show me that bit?
Yeah.
Can you do that? And it works. It's not the same as seeing a person.
No.
But maybe get rid of a third of flights comfortably.
Well, even that, I remember even when you started taking your car in for a service and you started to get these videos of them showing you, this is your car. Let me show you what we've been doing today. And that was, used to be going to the garage, taking some time. I know it's a very simplistic example, but even that, me having to go out of my day, go to, everything is timing. Yeah. It's just.
But then you've got to think about what you're doing with that extra time you saved.
Well, that's it.
You're probably just queuing in Starbucks.
I was never queuing in Starbucks. But no, I do take your point. It is what you do with that extra time.
Yeah. And I think, again, that's what we've all got to think about. Yeah,
definitely.
I mean, during COVID, when the roads were empty, that was a weird feeling.
It was so strange.
Yeah. But I can say around the M25 today, everything is back to normal.
It's still the car park that it's always been.
It kept moving. No, it was pretty good. But most people now are all travelling
back
again.
To it.
Yeah. And it's strange now because people have almost been scared to go on public transport.
Yeah.
So I think
more people in cars.
More car, yeah. Again, so environmentally, it's all gone
totally the other way.
Yeah.
That's interesting, that actually. Yeah. I mean, I must admit, I haven't jumped on public transport myself. I don't really need to where I am, but yeah, I think you're right, definitely.
I often get the train.
Yeah.
But they are, from when I've been going, probably only a third full compared to what they used to be at weekends and so on. But yeah, that's good because you always get a seat.
So what else do you see? What else do you see happening, or what else should we be doing when we're restructuring here?
Well, some might say that the current crisis is likely to change the balance between labour and automation. Because with the high levels of unemployment, probably to stay for years to come, there could be a larger workforce available.
Yeah.
And it's going to have less of an effect for automation in the Western economies.
Yeah.
So that's going to be an issue there.
Okay.
Because minimum wage prices have already been set. So
yes.
There's already a fixed cost there. Yeah. In fact, technology adoption should rise as wages become relatively more expensive if a firm's revenue has dropped.
Gosh.
Okay, so that's, again, you make the investment.
Yeah.
You've then got a fixed cost. You've got the variable cost of a person.
Yeah.
And it all makes it quite... and just the consistency, to be honest.
Yeah.
There's probably going to be more pressure on global supply chains to be shortened, especially given the restrictions to international travel again. So, again, potentially some more reshoring of some industries, some key bits. And then the West the traditional West has got to find ways of becoming more competitive with Asia.
Goodness me.
And again, the pandemic has probably been the driver, because we can't rely on the slow boat from China and crates of or container loads of goods sat outside on ports. So there's also an argument that SMEs and other organisations without strong balance sheets may need to enter a thrifty mode of operation because they've got no money just coming back into it, and unable to make the capital investments that are needed. Again, if you look at some automation firms, they're providing an option to do this by leasing the technology.
Yeah,
so
that's
I mentioned
interesting.
about the robots.
You did, yeah.
So I've seen it particularly in agriculture.
Yeah.
But you can see that it's a model that may well work. But
So we may see that rolling out into different industries.
Again, it's different. So finance houses, banks have all got to look at it slightly differently. But it could be a way to actually allow people to automate more readily.
Well, I imagine with all these things as well, when there's more people investing in different markets, and then there's more people that think, oh, I could use that with my business or with this sector or that sector, it's just going to open it out more and more and more.
Absolutely right. The more people that see technology, the more they can see how they can apply it differently to what the person first intended.
Yeah.
And that's where you start getting the real benefits.
That's the person that gets the real gold nuggets, the one that goes, oh, I can use that for that, and no one's thought of it.
It drives the cost down, increases acceptance, you move on again.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I can't see that, sort of AI and automation, all these areas. I mean, I can't sort of see that there's a negative around it now, because I feel like there was a few years ago when people were a bit like, oh, we're going to be taken over by robots. But now everyone can see, where would we have been without, again, technology when we were in lockdown? We were all sort of, a bit adverse sometimes to using technology. And, we use our phones too much and we use this. Well, where would we have been without it?
Yeah. So lots of self-interest in possibly public institutions and so on, is that robots could get used for cleaning. Robots could get used for porter services.
Goodness
and all
me.
that. But some of those institutions do not accept change.
Yeah. But eventually, but again, it's that thing as well where it doesn't mean that one person has to lose something. It just means that they might do something different. And it's like you're saying, look at what you can do with that time.
That's the big sell.
Yeah.
There's either not enough good salespeople to sell this vision, or there are too many cynicals that will never accept it. And at some point, the argument has to cross over.
Yeah.
And that depends on technology and people promoting technology to actually show that it definitely does work.
Yeah.
And it's worth the investment. But until then, you can understand some of the cynicism.
Yeah, of course you can, definitely. So what can we expect to see from you more in the future, the next 12 months, Mr. Livingstone?
I'm not that exciting. No, I shall just I'll be looking for opportunities again.
Yeah.
Absolutely delighted that a lot of the universities are coming back again now.
Yeah.
So there's many people there we haven't seen for a couple of years. There's definitely new technologies to be getting involved with.
Yeah.
And the emergence of some of the newer medical techniques. So there are some really exciting things that I believe once everyone's getting back to normal workplace and we've got them, they will kick on at a pace.
Yeah.
So there's some good developments coming, and we are still looking at increasing the size of the factory as well. So we are busy enough.
Goodness me.
So
it's the never-ending increasing size of the factories.
But I will still maintain I'd much rather be better than just getting bigger.
Yes.
But sometimes better means you have to get bigger as well.
Well, yeah. I mean, there's logic in that, isn't there? Well, thank you for coming to talk to me today.
No problem at all.
I'm sure we can think of some other subjects to talk to you about at some point, because I've enjoyed many a conversation with you about... Can we talk about mortgage rates today? Not allowed today.
Another
day.
No.
Thank you for joining us. And obviously, if people want to get in touch with you, best place is find you in Basingstoke. I mean, can they not just Google you and find you now? They probably can after today.
Yeah. LinkedIn's always a favourite.
LinkedIn is the best place to find Gary. Find Gary at LinkedIn, Gary Livingstone. But thank you so much for coming in, and best of luck with everything going forward. You truly deserve it.
Thank you very much, Nicole. Pleasure being here.
Thank you.